Antichrist subscribers. We are Advocacy, a Danish progressive metal band. I'm Søren, and I'm on vocals and guitar.
I'm Peter, I play bass.
I'm Andreas, and I play drums.
And I'm Søren, and I play guitar.
And missing is Peter Logger, who is in China. Well, the band name Advocacy actually comes from a previous band called Auskom I had in the Zeros as a young guy, and we made a song called Advocacy, and I really liked the broad definition of the term, like meaning advocating something, advocating someone's rights, basically being a word that describes like a commitment to something, and that combined with, I think it had a very nice sound for locos, like Advocacy. It had some potential there. It was just a name that stuck around.
So the album, The Path of Decoherence, has been a long way in the making. Some of the songs are from back when you were the only member in the band, way before anyone else joined. And some of them have been written during the mixing process of the album. So it spans quite a bit of time and also quite a bit of influence. Lyrically, you'll get to that point later, but we're mostly treading in this kind of existential, introspective universe. But musically, we are ranging far between both my own thrash metal and death metal influences over to, as an example, Andreas's classical training, and some of, well, we've all grown up a bit on like naughty's metalcore with hooks and melodies and stuff. And it really just became a collaborative effort, and that really represents us as a band with where we've come from and also a bit where we're heading, being more complex and more progressive than the previous EPs we've released.
Well, expanding on the band name and the definition of advocacy, I've always tried to find a balance between not making necessarily very complex lyrics, but still making lyrics about complex subject matters. And at this point, I mostly write all the lyrics, and they tend to range from individual issues like relationships or mental illnesses to more global issues like, for example, a song about climate change, or a more post-apocalyptic theme that's pretty evident in a song like Star Formation, and like more the relational issues is more evident in a song like Cut Loose, which is about the paradox between wanting to get closer to someone and, on the other hand, consciously or subconsciously hindering that process yourself. But especially on this album, we have also like experimenting with, I think, the theme for a song like Unnamed came from you, Peter, and you wrote about that when the mood you were in when writing this song was like you were thinking about the themes about identity diffusion or the consequences of dementia, and then I tried to write upon that basic theme. And Peter Logger, who's not here today, wrote also the foundation for the lyrics of the song Leap of Faith, which I tried to adapt to my style. And I think like sharing the lyric responsibility is something that we're going to develop on future releases.
So the album cover, we bought the artwork from Disturbing Grace Design. We found something that we thought suited very well for the themes of our albums, which is the kind of the downfall of Earth and mankind, and we think that it suited very well with how the Earth is kind of exploding, and on the backside we have it like where it's kind of melting. So thematically, it suited very well. It was me who was working on making the essential cover and putting in the logo design and putting in the track list. So yeah, that was me who did that.
So we actually partnered quite late in the process with Uprising Records and Target. So in the first part of the process, we found a producer ourselves, Frederik Ulebjerg, a local here from Aarhus, where we are from. And we were actually, as I mentioned, quite late in the process, where we were almost done with the mixing and the mastering. And then we tried to look for potential record labels to really get our album out to the masses. And then we found Target and Uprising Records that we partnered with. And before the release, we really did most of the things ourselves, really prepared the album for release. And afterwards, they've really helped us do a lot of the public relation stuff and really push our album to the masses, and especially internationally, where we could get a lot of different reviews from different papers, Italian papers, Spanish papers, all from
the different countries.
All the different countries, yeah.
So I work at the local university hospital as a service assistant in the Department of Pathology.
I'm a PhD student in physics and cosmology.
I'm a psychologist working with young people.
And I'm effectively a programmer. I write tax systems. I'd grown up on stuff like Queen and Garth Brooks throughout my early childhood. And then when I was in around 3rd grade, so I'd have been 9 years old, that was my first real introduction into the world of heavy metal through, I think, simultaneously Metallica, Iron Maiden, and Bullet for My Valentine, for a slightly weird mix. But yeah, it's been downhill since.
Well, my big brother introduced me to, like, especially the Black Album commercial period of Metallica, but it was like when I really got into metal was during my teenage years when the new metal trend was a big thing, and then it was mostly bands like System of a Down, Korn, and Slipknot that had my focus.
I've actually always had a quite broad taste in music, so it isn't up until quite recently that I began to dive into metal genres. So I've liked metal genres since my early teenage years, but really started to play it only a few years ago, 5 years ago maybe.
I have always listened to some kind of metal because I was brought up with Meatloaf and Metallica. But it was actually when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I was gifted some albums. And I really fell in love with Korn and Limp Bizkit and all the new metal stuff.
So in general, both as differing musicians and also as a band, we've of course had like our share of troubles so far, both with getting people together to actually get bands working and have it actually become something, also with pushing music out to listeners and to people and seeing the reception, or as is commonplace, lack of reception, both in a streaming or consumerist sense, but also in a live sense. I know that you've had a great time driving to Germany to perform for 3-5 people, something like that. But also on the more administrative and business side of sense, we've been so lucky to have Andreas taking up the mantle in advocacy for making sure that the economy runs around, and like the entire business administration side of things is quite the jungle to figure out.
So I'm a big fan of jazz music and big band music, so I would definitely love to do something in relation to that at some point.
I would just love to work with Devin Townsend because he is one of my absolute heroes.
Yeah. Other than working with some of my inspirations, I would like to do like more features with other kind of vocalists. But also in relation to what you said, Andreas, I would like to try and take some of the compositions we made and hear what would perhaps an electronic ambient artist do with that kind of music, or a classically trained musician, just to hear like how the same melodies or song structures can be interpreted in different ways. So I'm open to a lot of things.
Tigran Hamasyan, not a second doubt, like bonkers piano lines, super jazzy. He's fucking awesome.
Well, I have the experience that right now, like broadly, metal music as a whole seems to be divided between a fraction of genres trying to do something very experimental, very different with the classical sound, and other movements going more towards a nostalgic and more conservative sound. And to me, there seems to be a lack of a middle ground between these two forces, or what you call them. And I also think, especially like the way the music industry works now, where a lot of people can produce something of a pretty good quality, but it's difficult to be, as we talked about earlier, be promoted in a way that reaches a major audience. And I think that creates a lot of difficulties for metal music as well.
Guitar shredding.
Guitar shredding.
Guitar shredding.
Blast beats. Memorable concert. Recently, I saw Advocacy, Seven Spires, and Skelmøl live. That was unbelievably good concerts.
Watching Tool for the first time at Roskilde Festival in 2006 or something like that.
Gloryhammer at Epic Fest this year, where I crowd surfed wearing a unicorn onesie.
Yeah. For me, it's probably Porcupine Tree back in, I think it was like 2009 or 10. Mosh Pit.
Both.
Mosh surfing. Crowd surfing.
Mosh. 12 a.m. studio. I mean, then I can just stay up late and not get up early.
Yeah, I have children, so 6 a.m.
6 a.m. also with the children.
12 a.m. Blinding Lights by The Weeknd.
Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Lionel Richie All Night Long.
Peter Sommer, 8660. I don't even think it's a particularly good song. I just smile every time I hear it.
At the moment, we are trying to balance writing new material for our follow-up album, but also trying to plan more ahead in terms of getting out on bigger venues, both here in Denmark, but also internationally. And that takes time to plan ahead and balance it with family and work life.
So we're focusing on a more organic songwriting process this time. We've already got a few songs coming up, but this time around it's less whole songs that are written and then rehearsed, but it's more of an iterative process with trying to rehash things over and over again in the rehearsal space. So it also becomes a more, like, each song becomes a more cohesive effort for all of us. And also we've got a bunch of concerts lined up this year around Denmark, getting a bit more out to the people, and trying to make things take off.
Many thanks for having us, Antichrist. We're Advocacy signing off.